You guys, here I am. You guys, it's been a minute. I'm so sorry. I took a little summer sabbatical from the podcast and I didn't make any announcement about it. I just kind of pieced out for a minute, for a few weeks. And, that's what we do. Sometimes, as business owners who have been working hard, sometimes you just need to kind of piece out. So I took a vacation. I went to the vacation capital of the world, Philadelphia. I went for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to spend time with family and to eat cheesesteaks and to go to baseball games. And it was amazing and it was refreshing. And I thought before I got there, oh, I'm just going to my dad's house. Surely I can do some work while I'm there. And I just decided I'm not doing any work. I'm just going to soak up family time, not have the pressure of trying to juggle phone calls and be with my kids. And it was amazing and refreshing. But that also meant that I basically let go of all of my obligations in the business, including the podcast. And sometimes when we do that, when we look at what we feel comfortable letting go of and what we don't feel comfortable letting go of, we put a lot of unnecessary pressure on ourselves. Like, listen, I'm sure some of you were tuning in and bummed out you didn't see a new episode, but did it ultimately affect your life? Not really, right? Like, I don't think it made that huge of an impact. You might have been a little bummed out for a minute, but that's it, right? So when we look at the things we want to let go of, particularly in times of taking a break, we put pressure on ourselves and we feel guilty about what we're letting go of because of who we might disappoint. Hence the topic of this episode, which is about high achievers who have a hard time letting go, right? And have a hard time letting go of the guilt. So let me start by defining a high achiever, and you will recognize yourself. And I think that this is about 90% of the people that I work with can categorize themselves in this space. And I think that's why I work really well with you. And this is why I've titled my program, my coaching program, High Achievers, because we struggle with different things than other people, right? So we don't necessarily struggle with procrastination. We don't struggle with not getting things done on time. We don't struggle with getting work done at a high level. What we struggle with is overdoing and overthinking and taking breaks and resting because we're afraid of who we will disappoint. We have guilt about our teams and about our clients and about all the people that we serve, our families sometimes. We are so concerned about how they will see us, how they will judge us, and how we will judge ourselves that we don't let ourselves take a break. And I am so passionate about shifting the narrative around this, that high achiever can be a high achiever can be successful without grind. This is basically like the mission of my business, right? It is possible to shift your mindset from success equals grind and hard work and pain to success equals giving value, showing up in your best, what is the word I'm looking for? In your integrity without killing yourself in the process. So why is this so important? Why is it so important to disconnect the idea of high achieving, high functioning success and what that means about how we identify ourselves, with disconnecting that from we can take time off, we can close the computer at 5, we don't have to do the extras, we don't have to go to 150%. our 100% is high achieving. It's really hard for high achievers to disconnect these things. There's this overwhelming sense of, I'm not myself, I'm lazy, this is not who I am, I don't want to disappoint people, people are relying on me. Those sensibilities overwhelm high achievers because we identify ourselves as high achievers. We identify ourselves as successful, and whether that means money or a title or whatever, it's not necessarily about the result. It's that we say we're going to do something, we do it, we have a positive outcome, we're getting good feedback, right? Like to us, that's successful. Like people are recognizing our work and giving us feedback around it and positive feedback. And so that is what propels us forward. And that's why we lean so hard on that feedback and the recognition. And we need to feel valued. It's almost more important than any money or title. We need to feel like our work is making a difference and making an impact, because we're going to work our ass off, and we'll work our ass off if we're getting paid $1, and we'll work our ass off if we're getting paid 100,000, right? It's the same level of work. That's what a high achiever does. They just work their ass off no matter what, because they want people to see that they're really good, that they're really fucking good, right? Like that's the joy that we get as high achievers, is that like, look at how good I am. I'm so good at my job. That's what we want. And so to take time off, or to take a break, or to take a step back, we start to shift our identity about we're a high achiever. We work so hard, and that's where we get feedback. It's hard for us to imagine a world where we take a step back and we could still get that same level of feedback, because we don't try. We're too afraid to try. And so we fill that gap between, I'm going to work as hard as I can, as many hours as I need to prove that I'm really good at my job and to get some recognition for it. We're so stuck in that pattern that the gap between there and taking time off, or taking a break, or taking a chill pill, quite frankly, taking a moment to rest on the weekend, right? And not feeling full of to-dos and productivity over the weekend too. That gap between those two worlds is so big, we can't even imagine that we could feel successful and still identify as a high achiever without that level of push and grind. And there's so many reasons. There's so many reasons we do it. Part of it is insecurity. Part of it is culture. Part of it is ancestral, right? And I had this exact conversation with a new client recently who definitely identifies as a high achiever, who is on the brink of burnout and having physical manifestations of burnout, but cannot possibly imagine going on any kind of sick leave or taking a break because of how that might look. Also, how she sees herself. She sees herself as someone who doesn't give up, who can, push through anything. It's such a part of your personal identity and culture when you're like, I show up, I work hard, I don't give up. You feel closely tied to those values. You've made them into values, life values. I love high achievers, right? I love the ethic. I love the work ethic. What I don't love is the pain and the suffering and the physical manifestations of that pain and suffering, and the mental manifestations and the disconnection high achievers have from other parts of their lives. Oftentimes we throw ourselves into work because it's what we know, it's our comfort zone. We know we can be successful there. And we lose that level of success and effort and discipline in the other places in our lives. So the first thing to go when you're a high achiever is exercise. We all know it, right? Like some people are super disciplined about like when they get those pockets into their day. But I would say for most of the high achieving people that I've worked with, they're like, oh, but I have a meeting at 9. I can't possibly get a work in before that because I have to prep. I mean, this is where our brain goes. We're like, we have to be ready for that meeting. We can't possibly take time to exercise because we don't connect that exercise to success in the meeting. We connect mental preparation and getting ready for this meeting and maybe sometimes over preparing and overthinking it so that we can show up in our best state. Whereas what we forget is that our best state comes from being relaxed and connected to our bodies and in a place where our nervousness doesn't come into our voice or doesn't start to question whether we're delivering the right information, right? When you're all exercised and your body's fatigued from the exercise and you've got this brain body connection going from a workout in the morning, and then you go into a presentation, trust me, it's proven, you will perform better because you're already in that state of flow, let's say. And we forget too that body language is so important when we go into a presentation. It's not just the prep and the information and the content that we're delivering. It's the way we deliver it, right? It's the way we deliver it. This is why I get good feedback on my podcast, because I'm not like reading a script and making sure you get the content in every single bullet point. It's like, I want to talk to you like we're sitting in a room and I'm your manager and we're talking through the things you need to work on. And here's where we're at. And this is what we're looking at, right? This is a dialogue. And that is really important. The delivery is important. So if you're over preparing and you're not taking that time to get centered and grounded, you're just not going to have the same level of delivery. It's just not going to be there. So we forget as high achievers how important those other components of our lives are, right? If you have a happy, secure family life, right? If you feel relaxed over there, if you feel balanced, it's going to affect your work life. But if you're ignoring it, and it's causing a lot of stress. And of course, there's circumstantial things that we can't control. Things are going to happen in our personal lives that will always affect what's happening at work. But when you're balanced and there's time over there and effort and the same level of effort is being applied and the same desire for success and abundance in your personal life, when the level of effort is equalized, right? You're going to feel more of a holistic person. You're not going to feel like I'm a workaholic and then everything else is falling away. And you're also not going to feel like everything else is getting the focus and my work is becoming subpar because I'm focusing on everything else, right? There's this approach that you want to bring, which is your high achieving approach. I'm going to say I'm going to do something and I'm going to do that thing. We're going to pull that thread all the way through all the projects in your life, personal and professional. That's a superpower secret sauce of high achievers. But what we're also going to do is we're going to equal that out with the same amount of rest. So I've got a project at work, I've got a project at home, but I've also got rest time. So I'm not going to just force myself to push through these projects. And let's say it takes a month and you're like, at the end of the month, I'll rest. This is the biggest bullshit that I hear my clients say. Well, I just have to push through. Let me just push through the next 2 weeks. Once I get through the next 2 weeks, what they don't realize is in that push, how the other people in their lives are affected, right? That 2-week push might mean you snap at people, you get frustrated quickly, coworkers are walking on eggshells around you, your family's walking on eggshells, you've dropped all your exercise routine, you're not eating well, you're drinking too much coffee, you're in a cycle. That whole 2 weeks could really put a damper on how you feel in 6 months. People forget that too. It's like that pain and push will come back. A lot of times what I see is people just get sick, right? Like you're like pushing, you're like, oh, I have a vacation at the end of the month. I just have to push. I'll go on vacation. Well, what happens? They go on vacation, they're sick the entire time. You all know this. You've seen this pattern. So what do we do to shift this? Okay, this is not an overnight fix. Okay, this is not, I'm going to apply this principle. I'm going to start writing in my journal and then it's going to be gone. This is high achievers have their whole entire identity tied up in the way they work. So it's not something that like tomorrow you're like, now I feel better, right? It's deeply ingrained in your synapses, in all the thought processes and all the connections in your body, right? You've been tensing up for years. Your shoulders have been earrings, right? You've been holding and clutching onto this ethic and this push sensibility for a really long time. So you need to be extremely gentle with yourself. This is not another opportunity to put your high achieving principles and your goal oriented self out to work. This is not okay, I'm going to meet these goals in the next 4 weeks. And I can tell you, anyone who's high achieving that's listening to this podcast is like, oh, but I'll do it. She might say that we shouldn't do it that way, but I'll do it that way. And I'll be the one who like changes the timeline, right? Like, oh, well, other people might take them a year to work through this. It's going to take me a month, right? That's where my brain always goes when somebody challenges me on how much time something will take. I'll do it in half the time. It's one of my 100% like superpowers, right? At work, when someone brings me into a project, I'm like, I'll do it in half the time. And I do it highest level of quality, right? It's just that I have a certain way of like creating efficiencies in the way I work, and I do things faster. And I'm also extremely senior, right? So I don't have to like deliberate on things. I know the priorities, I focus and I get them done. But that doesn't mean that we're going to apply that same principle to our personal growth journey. So if you want to unwind from this high achieving push, pain, suffering sensibility, here's where we're going to start. And this is what I posed to a client. And I think this is a really helpful exercise. On the weekend, whatever the next weekend is coming up for you, I don't want you to have a to-do list or anything on your day that you have to do. I want you to spend Saturday and Sunday purposefully not doing anything. And what that means is if it's your routine to clean the house, let's say, or if it's your routine to go in the garden and do all the weeding, or if it's part of your routine to do all the house admin on the weekend, right? Whatever is like a normal part of your weekend routine, where you're like, I put this off, I need to be productive this weekend. I want you to challenge yourself to not be productive. And here's what you're teaching yourself, right? And this means too, like I would go to the extreme of like washing dishes, even that level, because what happens with us is that we see dirty dishes and we're like, we're going to do those so that we don't have to do them later, right? We're going to get that thing done so that later we can relax. This is our pattern, right? I'm going to do all the work on this project, and then afterwards I'll take a break. I'm going to work a few extra hours tonight so that I have an easier day tomorrow. P.S. That never happens. That's why I'm like calling bullshit on that, because you never have an easier day tomorrow, right? When you push through 2 weeks, you never just like lean back and go, cool, now I can chill, because we don't know how to chill. We just don't know how to do it. We're so set in this productivity cycle that our personal growth objectives, our health objectives, everything becomes like a goal-oriented project. And it's a list that we have to work through. And I'm sure you're like cracking up right now if you resonate with this, because you're like, oh my God, I have so many to-do lists. And one of them is like, I need to exercise more and I need to, right? Like we make it into this challenge, which again is like our secret sauce. I don't want you to lose that part of who you are. That's not what we're doing here, but we have to calibrate it with your permission to rest, with the belief that I can be high achieving and not push, right? We want to get out of the push. If you ever spend time at the gym, a lot of personal trainers will do this thing where it's like you have a push day and a pull day. I never quite understood what that meant. When I was on my own working out, I'm like, right, which exercises are push, which are pull? But the concept is interesting because if we're always pushing and we're never pulling, if we're always giving and we're never receiving, we're losing that flexibility in our muscles, right? So you can't just go one direction with weightlifting. You can't just go up. You have to come back down. And a lot of times what they say is it's the resistance of coming back down that is actually building the muscle, right? It's not just the push it out, it's also the pull it back. And we need to remember that in our flow of how we work and how we approach things in our lives. It's not, you can't push all the time and expect that that receiving moment will come, that pull moment will come. It won't come unless you flex that muscle. It won't come unless you practice it. You have to push and then you have to pull. You have to give and then you have to receive. You have to learn how to receive. You have to learn how to pull, right? You have to learn how to rest. And you have to remember that that rest will create improvements, right? I mean, we need especially to change our mindset around that. Exercise before a presentation equals better presentation, right? Dropping the exercise does not make us perform better. That's the part that we have to recalibrate as high achievers. Keeping the exercise routine makes us better at what we do. Logically, we know it. But when we get into the moment, we're like, we prioritize the work because it's where we feel the most success. And we need to start prioritizing the other pieces that actually affect our success in a bigger way than we believe, right? We won't allow ourselves to believe that the exercise is critical. We know it. I mean, honestly, we know it because we see the benefits of it when we're in that type of routine, but we drop it. It's the first thing we drop. So over the weekend, getting back to your first step in kind of unwinding this type of behavior, the first step is take your weekend and tell your partner, if you have a partner, tell your partner, listen, I'm doing this intentional exercise. I'm not trying to like burden you with all the chores, but I need to do this intentional exercise of just not doing it. I need to just step away because even when you see me chilling, I'm not chilling. Even when you think I'm being lazy and I'm laying around, I'm trying to decompress and relax my muscles. And I'm spinning in my head about work because this is a truth, right? When we've been so wound up and super productive, when we sit down, it's all still there. We're still carrying it. We're not like empty-headed and really like sucked into the couch. We just don't have that ability until we relearn how to be in that space. So for one weekend, it doesn't have to be every weekend. Just choose a weekend, not a weekend in the future, like a month out after you finish your project. This next weekend, set yourself up to say, I'm not going to do anything, right? And then allow what comes, right? So if you wake up and I'm not saying that you have to force yourself to sit on the couch and do nothing. I just mean you're not going to get into any productive cycle. It's like anything that's normally on your to-do list, any chores, grocery shopping, cooking, cleaning, any of the things that you normally fill up your weekend with, those go to the wayside. And when you wake up in the morning, you're like, what do I feel like doing? If you feel like exercising, exercise. If you feel like watching a movie, watch a movie. If you feel like drinking 4 cups of coffee, drink 4 cups of coffee. Just allow yourself to really like go with the flow. Where do I feel energy? Not a push energy, a pull energy, a receiving. Like I feel like exercising right now would feel good, but it's not coming from a I have to do this mentality. It's not a if I don't exercise, I'm going to feel bad about myself or guilty. It's a, it'd be nice. And so force yourself to the extreme. If you're normally like, I'm going to go for a run and I have to go for a run. I'm like getting myself back in shape. And it's It's like, don't just force yourself out of any of that energy and just be like, I'm just going to walk. Like, I feel like being outside. I want to exercise, but I don't want to push. This is pull. So what's a pull kind of energy I can apply to exercise? What does that look like for you? Is it a walk? Is it like a chill yin yoga session? Right? We do this thing to ourselves in those spaces too. And I have talked with my dear friend about this too. Like, we're high achievers and we're like, we're so disciplined about yoga. We're so good. And then we're like, this is me. I'm like, I'm going to sign up for the full pass at my yoga studio. I'm going to go every single day. I'm not going to take any of those yin bullshit classes. Like, I'm going to do the hardest, super tough vinyasa class and like the hard Pilates. Like, this is where my brain goes, because there's no part of my brain that's like, it's okay to chill. It's okay to take it easy. My brain is like, nope, full on. I'm going full on. I'm not going to do the yin class. That is not me, right? Why not? Why not? Like, let's start recalibrating our personalities around the fact that we, number one, deserve it. We've been working our asses off. We deserve to receive. We deserve that pull energy. We deserve to know what it feels like to get sucked into a couch and have zero thoughts, right? Like, we deserve that level of rest and relaxation, and no one can do it for us. We have to unwind ourselves from this pattern. Step one is the weekend project that you're going to do. And step two is every time you feel hyper productive, you're feeling like, I got to jot down this to-do list. I need to make sure I'm organizing myself to go XYZ. Before you get into it, I want you to sit down and go, why do I feel like I need to do this? It's going to bring up a lot of shit. Why do I feel like I need to do this? Because there's so much like proving something to ourselves in there. There's so much proving something to other people in there. And again, we're not going to lose our momentum. Trust me, you're not going to overnight become like this lazy sloth. That's not what we're doing here. We're giving you permission to rest. We're giving you permission to pull. We're giving you permission to be and not do. Who you are at this moment is 100% amazing. There is nothing wrong with you. If you're a high achiever, super high productive person, you've gotten to a place in your life that's successful, right? And it has served you. But you're also pushing, what's the word I want to use? You're also basically burning through your reserves, right? And you're not going to notice it when you're in your 30s. But when you're closing in on 50, like I am starting to have the physical manifestation of all those years of grind and pain and suffering. It's now starting to affect me. And if you've been listening for a while, you know, like, I have this immune system disorder. I have some things that are really challenging for me around that, including level of energy. I have some, not much, but like some brain fog that starts to, wedge itself in there at times when I'm like, this is not going to help my business. I have this brain fog that I'm carrying, right? And just the physical manifestation and the things that are challenging to me now are 100% directly calibrated and connected to the push of my early career and the proving and the needing to get myself to a certain level in my career. And I did it. And I feel really happy about the fact that I like set a goal and I got myself exactly to that goal. There was a point in my career in like 2012, where I had this like interesting vision. All of a sudden I was working for an advertising agency. I was like, you know what we need to do? We need to open an office in Europe. Amsterdam is like the place for all the tax breaks, and there are agencies there, and it's a really thriving community. They speak English. Like, send me over there. I'll start. We have a big client who has a European office there. Send me over there. I'll start an office. I'll be the MD. I'll grow the team. That was in 2012, out of nowhere. And in 2018, I saw that dream to fruition. I worked for an American advertising agency, not the same one. I worked for a different agency and I was their managing director and I grew their Amsterdam office. So I got there. I got to like the top of the peak. And it's because I worked my ass off, right? Like there are so many things. But if I would have known what I know now, and I would have known that I could have gotten there without the pain, trust me, I would have taken that route because I don't think I would be dealing with the things I'm dealing with now, the physical manifestation of all that grind and push and lack of sleep and constant stress. I don't think I would be battling these issues. So take it from me. If you're in your, let's say 30s, I'm just going to say 30s as a whole, and you're in this grind and you're in this pain and you're in this suffering, please take this to heart. You don't need to do it anymore. You will have the same level of success. You can still identify as a high achiever, and your life and your future physical health will be better off if you make the shifts now, if you unwind yourself from it now. We all believe, and we want to believe, that the circumstances are pushing us to be this way, and it's 100% not true. All the drama and weight and stress that I had in my early career, do you think I remember any specific moments of that? No. I don't remember the thing that kept me up at night, the conversation that kept me up at night, the team dynamic that kept me up at night, the client conversation that kept me up. I don't remember any of that. I remember the weight. I remember the pain. I remember the suffering. I remember the exhaustion. I remember not sleeping, but I don't remember why, because it doesn't fucking matter. Because in the long run, it does not matter. You will not remember that moment that you're entrenched in right now that's causing stress at work. You are not going to remember it. And I know you're like, oh, that's not true. Like this is heavy. This is a big deal. It feels like it now. If you can find a way to unwind from the emotion of that, if you can rest, if you can be, if you can pull instead of push, if you start to unwind yourself from this identification of high achieving equals pain, I need pain in order to make me successful, we can start to unwind that over time, you're going to have potentially more success. I mean, I would say it's like a 90% guarantee. The same way that we know that exercise is going to make us become a better presenter, right? If we're going into a meeting, we're going to be better if we've exercised that morning. It's the same concept. If you can approach your work from a more calibrated, balanced place, things in your personal life are more regulated and balanced, you bring all that extra energy into your work and you're a higher performer, higher than you are now, without the push. This is, again, like my mission. I want to unravel this because we've been working this way for so long that it's really hard to believe there's another way, but trust me, there is. And this is the way we need to show up. This is the example we need to set for our teams. We don't need this grind. We don't need to work overtime. We don't need to work at night. Like it's not necessary. It's ruining your future self and their physical health. And I'm really trying to educate from the other side because I really wish I didn't have these immune system issues that I have that are the result of overworking, not sleeping, all the things that create inflammation in your body, all those hardcore stressors, they will catch up with you. But you have the power now to make a change. And it doesn't mean anything about your high level of work ethic. It doesn't mean you're lazy. If you're giving yourself permission to recalibrate and to rest and whatever that looks like, you owe it to yourself to take that time to do the work you need to do to get yourself out of those patterns so that the next 30 years of your career are balanced and high performing from a space of, I have the energy to put towards this instead of the, I'm going to push myself to empty every day because pain is how I have success. Hold on to this, people. Bookmark this podcast, because every time you listen to it, you're going to hear something different that resonates differently. I think this is probably the most important thing you can learn in general. I think this has applications in your personal life as well. Like, where are you pushing? Where are you sort of forcing pain, thinking that you're going to have a result on the other side that's going to be better than it would be without the pain? So I've got you. I've got faith in you that you can unwind this. Start with the weekend project, and please give me feedback. Let me know if it's working or not working. And you can always set up a discovery call with me to talk through how it's going and how you're unwinding from this. I want to help, because I really want to help as many people as possible unwind from this and understand how much more success and abundance you're going to have when you recalibrate this piece. And I'm not just talking about financial abundance. I'm talking about just overall holistic abundance in your life, in your spirit, in your body, in your physical self. All of that is going to be bigger and brighter and wider and more energetic when you find a way to unwind from this identity that success and where I'm at is only because of pain and suffering. And that's the only way I'm going to be able to continue. And that people are relying on me to work at this level. Well, no, people are relying on you to be healthy and available, and you can't be if you're on empty. Same old thing, right? But just said in a different way. We all know this, but we need to start living into it and making some shifts. So I'm going to leave you with that. And I promise I will be back next week. Talk to you then.